Hey, Michelle.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for joining me.
Of course, thank you for having me.
I love the picture, by the way, the picture you sent me. It's
Oh, thank you.
beautiful. Beautiful. Good morning,
Our
everybody.
was great. So,
Yeah, I loved it. I like the white jacket. I'm like, oh, I have to get a white jacket too. Good morning, everybody. This is Jackie Caliste and Michelle McGrann from Coeus Creative Group. And we're here to talk about training for small businesses. It's essential. We usually focus on stuff like taxes, we focus on stuff like marketing, and we forget a crucial part, which is our people and also ourselves. How to motivate ourselves, how to motivate others. A big part of this journey is our head space, and Michelle and her group do an amazing job about that. So I really want to thank Michelle for joining us and just to tell us a little bit about what she does and how long you've been doing this for.
sure. So Coeus Creative Group, we started under a different name and brand in 2007. And funny enough, discovered that there was a telecom company in Nepal with the same name. And as we started, going, like many businesses figure out, what you think that you're in business for kind of shifts. And so we decided right at the end of 2014-ish that our name and brand didn't really reflect what our company had become. So we rebranded as Coeus Creative Group at that time. So we've been in business. I'm terrible at math, but for more than 10 years, heading into 15, I think, this year. But Coeus as a brand has existed for about 6.
That's amazing.
Yep. So what we do is what is all around this idea of behavioral intelligence. So we think that behavior is the root of all success and failure, and good behaviors lead to positive outcomes. When we are talking about communication, conflict resolution, team building, all of these important soft skills, and bad behavior leads to bad outcomes. And so we strive to help individuals, organizations, nonprofits, Fortune 500 companies with improving their behaviors as an organization, as the people within the organization, as leaders, to try to help them achieve the success that they are looking for. So much like we talk about in school, they teach you history and social studies. You go and get a degree and you learn how to be an engineer or be a historian. But a lot of times we don't teach our students basic communication skills. We don't teach them leadership skills. We just kind of think that these things are inherent. These people then graduate, join the workforce or start a business, and suddenly realize that there's a whole set of skills and abilities that they may not have. And these are those critical behavioral skills.
And one of your trainings that I love is how to deal with difficult people.
Yep, that one is probably our most popular training. And we have given that around the world to many, many different, everything from like Ford Motor Company to small real estate groups of 3 people, because it is such a overarching situation for all of us, and yet we don't know how to handle it particularly well. Whether that difficult person is someone in our family or a coworker that we're forced to deal with, a manager, or an employee. So difficult people surround us, and a lot of times we are the difficult person.
Isn't that amazing? Can you imagine? We think it's somebody else, we blame somebody else, and it turns out it's how we are seeing and, processing whatever is happening around us.
And the thing is we have this idea of behavioral intelligence, right? This is the methodology that goes through all of our trainings. And it's this idea to explain existing behavior, predict future behavior, influence other people's behavior, But at the end of the day, the only thing that you can really count on is controlling your own behavior. And so this sort of like epic acronym runs through everything. And so even when we're talking about dealing with difficult people, you can do things to influence the situation, but at the end of the day, you can't control them. You can only control you, and you can control your responses and your behaviors and the way in which you deal with the situation. And so a lot of the training kind of comes back to, empathy and understanding, influence and persuasion, but at the same time, that self-control, that self-assessment. What are you doing that's making the situation worse? That type of thing.
A lot of people don't understand that. They don't understand that we have control of the environment. That's amazing that dealing with difficult people really turns out with it's you. It's how you control the situation.
Yeah. And, there's a saying about how that there's this space between a stimulus and a response.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really a lot of our work comes from what are you doing in that space in between. You can control your response. You can't control the stimulus. So
Exactly.
what are you going to do that's going to lead to a better outcome? Because at the end of the day, and this comes through a lot, it's your heart attack. Right? Like
you can either get upset for that person cutting you off in traffic and try and chase them, which probably is not going to turn out very well. You could be like, okay, have a nice day, whatever.
Yeah. And so a lot of that is, your mindset, the way that you want to approach a situation, what you want your outcome to be, both externally, like in the world, your behaviors, but also internally, because our behaviors and our mindset controls the world that we live in. It's the way in which we experience the world. So
what's another popular one, another popular training that you offer?
Body language is a big one that we do. How people don't realize. So my background's in communication.
Mm-hmm.
I was a communications major. And we think that a lot of times communication is only about the words that we say, the things that we write, the messages that we're giving, like that. However, our bodies give messages that we're not always cognizant of, like we don't think about, but people pick up both consciously and unconsciously. So, when you are trying to portray yourself as a leader or, confident or any of this stuff, no matter if you only focus on the words that you say and how you say it, you're missing a huge portion of the communication that's happening with another person. Wow. So that training is really focused on understanding body language that you're doing, as well as understanding body language of other people, and then how to control that body language and use it to influence situations more positively. Everything from micro expressions on your face to the way that your shoulders and your body positioning to hand gestures, and all of this gives messages to people that you're talking about. And that's, when we're talking, especially professionally, you meet someone in a networking group, that's one of the first things. That's your first impression. When you're making a sale, when you're doing a presentation, like these are critical things that you need to kind of be aware of. So that's always a really popular one. And then more recently, our behavioral elements program has proven to be really popular. And that's like a whole system, right? That's a series of workshops and different events, as well as activities and an assessment and stuff. But people are really responding to that one and finding it really useful and accessible, which
I love that training.
You spend time working on something, and when someone outside is just as excited about it as you are, it's very fulfilling.
It's an amazing, amazing training, because it really gives you insight into everybody around you and how they respond and how you can respond to them. And then how different people's, I don't know if it's strength or weaknesses, but how you can make a better team.
Yeah, it's just preferences, right? So
Hmm.
you try to go into it with this idea without judgment that there's not behavior is neither good nor bad, but certain behaviors lead to positive outcomes and some may lead to negative outcomes, because the same behavior in a different context can be positive, but then in a different context can be negative. But so it's just sort of that preference and understanding that we're all a little bit different. And the more that we understand, the more that we can expect and we can influence and we can leverage the positive and sort of, make up for, I guess, some of the negative issues that may arise, especially if you have like an unbalanced team.
Exactly. I love that, because then you can understand how to get different personalities that would work best together in order to be a great team.
It's about that balance. And, when you probably, most people have experience being on a team, whether it be a sports team or, a working team, professional, or, everybody's dreaded group work. The projects that are successful is when, you have differences and you can leverage people's strengths and you fill the gaps of other people. And so you are working, you're well-rounded, as opposed to, somebody that is very one-sided and then you miss some of the other aspects.
Exactly. Now, tell me a little bit on how you help small businesses. I guess we kind of touched it a little bit with teams, but how do you help them out improve their people?
Yeah, so we offer a couple of different solutions. We do one-on-one coaching. We do, small group facilitations or strategic plannings, and then we offer in-person workshops, as well as our newest program, which is a subscription program that you can access online, both live and at your own pace. So we try to get as many different access points to companies to help them with whatever their particular need is. But sort of all of those things combined, small businesses, we're a small business, a startup, and you have to be really intentional with where you spend your resources. You're always worried about that bottom line. And we find that people who are, when you improve the competencies of the employees that you have, you save cost from hiring and turnover, your retention rates increase, and your people are more engaged. They feel more motivated towards the work, like productivity increases, innovation increases, which is critical for small businesses. You got to be on the cutting edge of what's coming, or at least adaptable and agile to changing markets. But small businesses don't have the budgets for, internal large level training programs.
Can we look at your website?
HR does it. Many small businesses don't have HR. So we provide opportunities that small businesses can access to still have that employee development, that professional and personal development in a place that they can access.
Okay. I'm on your Titan Skills Academy.
Yep.
website.
So this is our newest product. This is the one I was kind of talking about in terms of online. So, when COVID hit, everybody had to move away from in-person trainings, in-person conferences, a lot of these learning opportunities that they had counted on. And while we had been moving, the industry had been moving online for many, many years, it was kind of slow. So all of a sudden everybody's like, okay, I have time on my hands. I want to improve myself. Maybe I want to, get to a new job, and I need to work on my skill sets and professional and personal development for my resume. And then we went to online trainings, and some of them are really, really terrible, like really terrible. whether it be small, little videos that have pretty bad production value, and then, there's a quiz before you can move on to the next one, and it's really kind of passive and there's no engagement, or it's a, hour-long Zoom that is really boring, or,
those are horrible.
It's just horrible. Somebody who's used to training in person, and then they just get a Zoom account and they try to do it online, and it just didn't work, right? And as a trainer, and I'm sitting here watching some of these, I'm like, oh, I can't even pay attention, right? And this is something I'm clearly very passionate about. And if I'm having trouble paying attention, I can't imagine the people that are not as interested. So we decided to try to fill the gap with something that we found would be more, like I said, when people are learning or having fun and they're engaged, they learn more. So how can you bring that element in? But with the convenience of online learning, convenience of, one of the other things that's always missing is that networking with other attendees before and after the training, and that, somebody to discuss something cool, that aha moment that you had in the training, right? So,
and then other people can ask questions that you wouldn't have thought about.
Exactly, because sometimes you don't even know that you had that question unless another attendee asks it or something like that.
Exactly.
So how do you do all of that and kind of replicate those situations or contexts in an online environment? Because online is very convenient. It's lower costs. It's, you don't have to worry about travel and booking a room and food and all of this kind of stuff. So we found sort of, this is our solution, I guess. The Titan Skills Academy, every month we have a topic or a training. It includes articles from, Forbes and journal articles about the topic, resources that we found useful, TEDx videos that, all of this curated content that, is all about the topic. And then there is a scheduled training that is live on Zoom, and attendees have the option to participate, and kind of like this, you can have a conversation with the trainer, you can chat, you can ask all of your questions like a live training, as well as it's immediately recorded and put into the system. So if you're unable to make it live, you still have the ability to go back and watch it, etc.
And it's talking about all the top things that you just discussed, like dealing with difficult people, decision making, and this is a big one, diversity and inclusion, and then also managing burnout, especially now with the pandemic. People are zoomed out. They just...
Exactly. And then the other aspect that we have included is this community of peer learners, as well as the instructors. So even outside of the training environment, you can communicate with other attendees. You can network with them. Their profiles are searchable by tags, and you can find people that are interested in the same thing as you are, mark them as a supporter so that you can achieve things together. But then each one of our instructors is also on. So, whether you have a question 2 days after the training, you can throw it in the community and your instructor will answer. And we can set up, one-to-one times if you have some specific questions or follow-up that you want. So this is the best replication that we could find of making sure that you can learn from industry experts and thought leaders on these topics, access it at your convenience, but still have that engagement, networking aspect all online. And so we did it as a subscription. So you can either pay monthly or you can pay for the whole year, and you get, a discount, because that's just how these things work. And you get access to the new training every month, plus what's already preloaded in there. So, right now, the ones for dealing with difficult people and managing burnout are live. Diversity and inclusion, which should be done today-ish or tomorrow. And then decision making will have our live training July 1st, which is a Thursday at 4:00. And we really wanted it to be accessible, right?
Mm-hmm.
What good is a tool if you can't utilize it? So we tried to set it at a really low cost for both small businesses, individuals, and organizations, so that it wasn't something that was out of reach. It wasn't like those large level HR programs that are hundreds of thousands of dollars. For an individual, it's $30 a month. It's a gym membership.
It really is. And
Yeah.
people don't understand how critical your individual development is. I mean, for me, one of the other trainings I took from you was how to deliver like a 30-second presentation, like just to figure out really, really quickly if I wanted to talk about myself, like in a minute, could I do it? And I didn't realize it's something structural. You can actually be taught to do it in a few simple steps. And it
Yeah.
was really eye-opening. And if you're networking, it's crucial to be able to do something like that.
Yeah. And that's the one thing, there's information out there. The joke is that you have, more information in your phone than the Library of Alexandria had, and you can access anything. But if you don't know how to use that information, if you don't know how to apply it, it's not helpful at all. So each one of our trainings is really focused on that how piece. Like, we'll give you the science behind it. We'll give you the best practices and stuff, and the knowledge, but it really comes down to how to use it. So you can talk about communication, you can talk about theory and all of this, but how do you structure a 30-second elevator pitch? How do you structure a minute elevator pitch in a way that's easy to remember, that you can go back to all the time, so that way when you walk out of that training, you walk out of that room, you can make that networking pitch and remember it even a year and a half later.
It's amazing. It really is amazing. And then I love it too. You have podcasts on different topics. I'm just on your website right now, just looking all the different stuff that you have. And then there's the product previews, and of course, all the different elements.
Yep.
The different personalities, elements, fire, earth, air, and water. This is really neat.
Thanks.
Really, really neat. Yeah, I think it's just phenomenal. And thank you for having opened this up to me, because I didn't realize how important it was for my own development to actually invest in those specific behavioral training skills.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this last week offline, just in a regular conversation. A lot of times people go into business because they're good at something. I think the one I used is, you decide to open a bakery because you're great at making cupcakes and all your friends and family love your cupcakes, and you think that there's an opportunity there for you. Just because you're good at making cupcakes doesn't mean that you're good at the other parts of running a business. And a lot of small business owners and entrepreneurs open their doors and they're like, oh, wow, this isn't about making cupcakes. This is about customer service. This is about managing employees. This is about, organization. And you think, oh, I'm going to work for myself, so I'm going to have all of this flexibility. You have far less flexibility as a business owner than you did, working for someone else. How do you manage that burnout and that anxiety of feeling like everything is on your shoulders? These are the critical skills that are more related to small businesses and entrepreneurship and leaders than sometimes that technical know-how for the product you deliver. But
it's so critical,
right? Like, how do you deal with it? So that's
and it's so critical, because customer service is a big deal, right? Managing your employees is a big deal. Networking and getting business and selling your product and yourself is a big deal. But we concentrate on those other things, like, okay, I got to get my taxes done. I have to get my marketing. I have to, make my cupcakes. But there's all these other bigger things too that are involved that we're totally unaware of, which is all part of the product or the process. One more question. what has been the biggest behavioral training that you had to, that's come up because of the pandemic?
You mean in terms of topics or?
Yeah, in terms of topics, like what's something, we talked a little bit about burnout. Is there anything else that's popping up where it's something that wasn't so, but with the pandemic, with
Yeah,
people?
so burnout by far has been something like as we head into 2021 and that this has been lasting so long.
Mhm.
At the beginning of the pandemic, we had a lot on crisis communications and
Right.
how to be agile.
Mhm.
Because we had, as business owners, you needed to reassure your employees, but you didn't want to give them false hope. You needed to communicate, how do you communicate if you had a COVID outbreak at your work, your business? So dealing with crisis was a big one. Since then, the other big one has been design thinking. So, businesses are starting to realize as they reopen that the market has changed. And
Mhm.
how do you become agile to those changes to survive? Doing the same thing when the circumstances has changed, it's not successful. But how do you know what to do differently? And so design thinking is a process. It's a methodology of thinking through new situations, brainstorming outside of the box, and coming up with new services, offerings, products, ways of doing, and approaching the world. And it's a really fun workshop and training
Mhm.
to do. It stretches our imagination, your creativity, and your innovation in a very said how to sort of way.
And this just made me think about something. It's something that's going to really be needed because companies are seeing that, okay, working remotely is a lot more efficient, but they don't know what they're going to need working remotely. It's not just, showing up on Zoom or using Microsoft Team meetings. It's going to be a lot more like developing a culture behind something,
Exactly.
like how do you develop a culture for an organization, especially people who are just new? If everybody's working remotely, how do you, motivate your employees remotely?
And
How do
funny
you
enough,
keep track of?
those are all training topics that we
Yeah,
offer. So it's definitely something that people are experiencing. How do you
yeah,
communicate remotely? How do you create a company culture when you're not seeing each other every day? How do
exactly.
you motivate people remotely when they're at home and there's a certain level of or feeling of disengagement on top of, and even it's coming out now about how with remote workforces, can you be intentional about promotion and making sure that you're not unintentionally
Mm-hmm.
causing issues with diversity and inclusion based on people's differing home contexts. So the big one that's coming out is gender differences, right? If you have a remote workforce in which people have the option of coming into the office or they can choose their own hours,
Mm-hmm.
those without families who are single and generally younger have more flexibility and they'll show up more. Whereas those who have families or, are taking care of children, they may be working later at night, not normal 9 to 5, or they may have different flexibility about coming into the office or when you so choose.
Mm-hmm.
Those who are front in focus,
Mm-hmm.
right, are generally the ones that get picked for higher level projects, which
And
are
it makes sense
lead to
because they're
promotion.
visible,
Yep.
right? They're
Lead to
visible, and that in-person connection is always stronger than
exactly
any kind of remote connection that you can possibly make.
right. So it's
Ooh,
not
that's a big
something
one.
you know people thought of, but that's
Yeah.
something that's an issue now. And so what can organizations and managers and leaders do to think about this, to be intentional and counter it?
Mm-hmm.
So that's another one.
And is there how to maybe to develop mentorship programs to allow for that type of visibility? I don't know. I'm just
Yeah, there's a bunch of different things to do, or that can be done. And
Right.
what works for one organization is not necessarily going to work for another. But the training really can talk about, here are some different thoughts and options, and how would we brainstorm that's something or solution that will work for your organization, the culture that you've created, and sometimes.
And then for employees, because I hear this a lot, people are feeling isolated, right? You're working from home, but you're isolated. You're not meeting at that water cooler talking and gossiping, and you're more efficient. But at the same time, those friendships that you form are not there anymore. And how do you continue that? Oh, this is a lot.
Yeah. And people are, like you said, and when we are on Zoom or something, meetings are far more like agenda focused. There's a reason you jump on. There's less chit-chatting before and chit-chatting after. It's very like you get on and it's that efficiency. People are only now starting to realize how much relationship building and how much work actually sort of got done in these one-off, by the way, conversations, or walk down to someone's office, the water cooler, like you said. How do you can't replicate it completely, but how do you account for and create space for those types of things in an online culture? And,
that's really interesting. That collaborative environment, but in a more relaxed atmosphere. Because Zoom is very structured, and sometimes those ideas just pop out of the blue.
Right.
Oh, this is gonna be neat. It's exciting for you guys because you get to kind of like introduce different ideas and different solutions to businesses on, some things that could work for them.
And, for as much as we train on these topics, I mean, there are things that we had to deal with too. When COVID happened, we were traveling around the world doing trainings, and all of a sudden, no more travel, no more in-person events. That was a huge part of our business. So how we had to figure out how to be agile. We had to figure out how to brainstorm new solutions. We had staff, and we closed our office, and we've been remote since March 13th of 2020.
A day you can never forget. It's
right? Exactly.
It's ingrained.
Yes, it is. And, how do we create those feelings of connectedness with our staff and create a company culture? So, as much as we talk about these things and we try to help other businesses, we're utilizing them and leveraging them ourselves. And we hope to bring some of that, real life experience in when we talk about stuff. Some of these things worked. Some of these things were, solutions were pretty terrible. Like they were really lame. And so, don't do those. Do the ones that work. So
exactly, and you learn from your mistakes. Mistakes is just a platform to learn.
Exactly.
Yeah. Fascinating stuff. Oh my goodness. I always love talking to you, Michelle. I always find that I'm learning something and getting something. And I truly encourage people to look at it. And the training that you're offering through the Titan Skills Academy is amazing. And it's very reasonable because you can have the individual, small groups, enterprise, skill solution, and those skills are, essential for, it doesn't matter if you're a small business, but also for employees. So thank you so much for joining me. It was really eye-opening. It was great learning about everything you guys do. And I don't know if you have any other notes you want to share with us, but
I just want to say, first of all, thanks for having me. I love having these conversations with you as well. I mean, we had one last week, even offline, so it's definitely really helpful, and I appreciate you. I guess the last thing I would just leave people with is, there's this idea that personal and professional development is a luxury, right? It's an additional cost. And when we're focused on taxes and like you said, those really standard types of things, that this is something that's like, oh, that would be nice sometime in the future. But there's a lot of research out there and numbers about how these types of skill development, both for yourself and for your employees, can really help your bottom line. So I would encourage people to really look into personal and professional development, even if it's outside. I prefer they come to Coeus and Titan, but there are also resources all online, and really think about if it is a luxury, or is it something that is really going to help you in your business every day, in ways that you may not even recognize right now. So
definitely. It's like your employees make your company and you make your company. So if you don't invest in that, I don't know, like I kind of see you guys almost as a therapist, honestly, because it's like therapist for businesses, right? Because you don't even, it really is. It's like the whole thing about difficult people, and then kind of understanding it's really not other people, it's you. Eye-opening, really is. So definitely encourage people to check it out. And I think it's really reasonable. It's just kind of prioritizing and understanding and shifting a perspective on the importance of putting it up at the top.
Yeah.
So thanks, Michelle. Thank you. And that's it for us today. Everybody have a great day. And please reach out to Michelle. Reach out to her on their website. And let me make sure I have that information. I had the information.
It's okay.
I had the information. It's at coeuscreativegroup.com. Please reach out to them. Thank you, everybody. Take care. Bye.